Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire magazine and the best-selling publisher at the boutique publishing house, InspiredLivingPublishing.com, where we publish books that inspire, empower, and support women in living their best lives. You know, I've been pretty open about my journey, right, and why I do what I do in the world. And I love bringing on other women who show up with, just that wide open heart, vulnerable, authentic, because I believe when women share their truths and their stories, we empower and support other women in seeing that, we are perfectly imperfect. So today we're going to be having a conversation with Shannon Kaiser, and I am so excited about this conversation because everything she puts out into the world really resonates with me as a woman, and that's why I wanted to hear today, because I am pretty sure that you too also want to put a stop to self-sabotage and overcome your fears so that you can gain the confidence you need to reach your goals and become your own best friend. Too many people seem to believe, and I was one of them for a very long time, that they're not allowed to put themselves first or to go after their own dreams out of fear of being selfish or sacrificing the needs of others. Listen, whether you want to achieve weight loss, land your dream job, find your soulmate, or get out of debt, it all comes back to self-love and accepting yourself first, and Shannon is here to talk about just that. You see, Shannon learned the secrets to loving herself, finding purpose, and living a passion-filled life after recovering from eating disorders, drug addictions, corporate burnout, and depression. And her new book, The Self-Love Experiment, 15 Principles for Becoming More Kind, Compassionate, and Accepting of Yourself, is coming out next week. It's available for pre-order now, but this is a book you want to grab, ladies, because it speaks to who we are as a woman and the struggles that many of us go through. So Shannon has been named the top 25 most influential wellness experts by Mind Body Green and a new thought leader on the rise by Cafe Truth. She's helped thousands of people worldwide through her private life coaching practice, articles, her best-selling books, and meditation albums, workshops, courses, and her award-winning website, playwiththeworld.com. She's an inspirational author, speaker, travel journalist, teacher, and life coach who left her successful career in advertising several years ago to follow her heart and be a writer. She's the best-selling author of Find Your Happy, an inspirational guide to loving life to its fullest, and the books Find Your Happy Daily Mantras and Adventures for Your Soul. Shannon is also a 6-time contributing author to Chicken Soup for the Soul. Shannon, welcome. I'm so excited to share space with you today.
Thank you. It's so beautiful and wonderful to be here with you. Thank you for that just fantastic introduction.
Well, I have to say, I've been following you for quite a while now. I've put one or two of your books in the Aspire Mag Top 10 list because you have this way of writing and teaching that really speaks to the essence of who we are as women, like the truth of our essence, right? And you help us see that what we're feeling is okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful to hear and hear you say that because, as you said it and when you introduced me, I did suffer from depression and corporate burnout and eating disorders several years ago. And I remember feeling alone. And I remember feeling like this is as good as it gets and this can't be. There's got to be more to life. And it was in that moment when I had one of my rock bottoms where I said, I need to be true to myself. And part of being true to myself is allowing myself to express myself. So I started writing, not planning on turning it into a career at first. I just said, I need to do what brings me joy. And I had no idea that writing brought me joy. I just listened to my inner gut, my inner guidance that said, just start writing. So I took a journal to a coffee shop. And as I did that, I started to share my blogs, and the reflection back in Chicken Soup for the Soul published one of my very first articles ever. When I got that reflection of thank you, I feel what you feel, I realized this is a community. This is bigger than me. It really has nothing to do with me. And I made a promise to myself. I will always speak my truth, no matter how tough and hard it is. And that's exactly what my next book is, The Self-Love Experiment. I put it all out there. And I said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to show up and not worry about the outcome. Just be true to me. And so thank you for saying that, because it's beautiful to hear that I can help.
That's why I've always connected to your writing, Shannon. It's so real and vulnerable when a lot of people right now in the online world, we have a tendency to put a mask on to protect ourselves, right? And I love this. I love the realness when you can share your truth. I mean, you've been, through your other books, you've been very open about recovering from eating disorders, the drug addiction, the depression, the corporate burnout. And women are going, yes, that's me. Yeah. She's real. She gets me.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're going through it because, like I said, I felt like I was alone, and everyone else, because we're so used to putting on a front, or not just on the online world, even when I was in corporate, you could feel underneath that maybe people weren't as happy as they would project, because that's what we're trained to do. And it's not that I set out to kind of change things. I just knew that way wasn't working. I knew that I didn't feel good in my body. I didn't feel good in my life. And I needed to look at why. And the reason why was because, wow, there's certain things that I feel and certain things that I want to express that aren't being expressed. So it's so beautiful to be able to write and have this be a career that I'm so in love with, and then to connect with beautiful women all over the world and help them realize you're enough. Your dreams matter. It's so important to just be true to you.
It is, and it's been a path that I've been on for a long time. It's almost like we pick up layers of muck, from childhood on. And like I like to say to my clients is, you are a divine spirit. Like, you are glowing. You just put on layers of muck, kind of like the lotus in the mud, right? And your job is to do the spiritual and emotional work to remove it. But the essence of who you are is there. It's just we have to do the work. And you've done the work and continue to do the work, right? Like this book you shared was birthed, even though you had written other books, it was birthed because you were still struggling with this same stuff, this voice, of the inner critic constantly judging yourself. And how many women can relate to that, Shannon?
Oh, I know. In fact, in doing research, I discovered that 90% of women hate their bodies. That's crazy. I thought I was the only one, right? And then in doing deeper research, 95% of people, including men, want to change something about themselves. So this, I realized, was a huge epidemic. It was something that really was so much bigger than me. And, it's interesting because I had worked really hard on learning the tools to focus on healing my depression, healing my eating disorders, freeing myself from addictions. I truly was happy. When I wrote my first book, Find Your Happy, and I was going on a mini media tour, and I was sharing it with a local TV show in Seattle. I was getting ready to go on the morning show. And it was the night before. I was in a hotel room, and I was crying, looking in the mirror. I wasn't depressed anymore. I wasn't suffering from any eating disorders, and I was doing a job I really liked, writing. But I looked in the mirror, and I said, I can't find one good thing to say about myself. And I'm getting ready to go on TV and talk to people about how to be happy. And I looked in my eyes, and I said, how happy can you be if you don't love yourself? And that right there was another turning point for me, where I said, you know what? I'm going on my full-time mission to learn how to become my own best friend. And that's what turned into the self-love experiment. And I started to write my next book, Adventures for Your Soul, not really thinking about this experiment is going to turn into a book. I wasn't thinking that at all. And as I was writing Adventures for Your Soul, that's how you transform your habits, fear that's holding you back, very appropriate. But there's one chapter particular in there called Me Matters. And that was the self-love chapter. It was the hardest for me to write at the time, but it was also the one when I was on book tour for Adventures for Your Soul. It was just screaming out, I need to be my own book. So that's where we are with the self-love experiment, because we can be happy and we can, check off all the boxes. Okay, we've worked really hard, but it's always going. And self-love isn't a destination we get to. It's always going. This is our life, to keep doing the work, keep showing up for ourselves.
And I love what you said. It's not a destination we get to, because I think a lot of us are under the false illusion, and I was at one time, that, okay, I've done enough work, I'm there, right. Okay? And then when the thought comes back, a negative thought or a self-defeating thought, it's like, oh my God, I'm a failure, I can't do this. But the truth is that we're human, and life is constantly coming at us, so we always have to recalibrate our thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really learned that in my own self-love experiment, where I talk multiple times throughout the book about, it's not about falling off the wagon or skipping your workouts or we used to beat ourselves up so much about it. It's about how fast can you return to you? How fast can you identify that inner critic and then move into a more loving, compassionate voice? And it's definitely a process. And now, when these fear voices come in, I'm able to bounce out of them much quicker because I have this base of compassion and love and acceptance for self.
It's a beautiful place to be, too. And one of the things is, I love that you called it an experiment. It's almost like you're testing, you're tweaking. I can see you ahead, self-love in a little test tube over here, compassion over here, and kind of like, mixing it. Is that what it felt like to you, like a true experiment, because a lot of this was new for you?
Oh, 100%, yes. And I think experiment is the best word possible for what this is. And I think if we all take the idea of experiment and put that into our life, as in life is an experiment, that takes off a lot of pressure of trying to get there, of trying to look a certain way, trying to be a certain way. So when I was in my self-love experiment, it was a very personal journey, and that gave me permission to not beat myself up if a specific diet didn't work. Or, when I first started to write the book, I thought, when I lose weight, I'll find self-love. This is going to be great. Okay, super. And then I lost some weight, then I gained some back, and I realized self-love has nothing at all to do with how you look. It's about how you live. And that was a beautiful aha for me, because I realized when I'm focusing on my inner critic and the things that I can't do or how I look or what people might think of me, I'm not actually living my life to its ability, its capacity. I'm so obsessed with what's not working that I'm avoiding my dreams. I'm avoiding the possibilities of what could be. And with an experiment, we get to try things. And if they don't work, okay, it's an experiment, just like a scientist, right? A scientist, they have hypotheses they're forming, but they don't get mad or freak out if it doesn't work. That's all part of the process. And each part moves you forward.
That's beautiful. Well said. And I can just, the vision of the test tubes is there for me.
I love that.
We'll be back in a moment with Shannon Kaiser of playwiththeworld.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul. Every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hey, America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Shannon Kaiser, author of The Self-Love Experiment, 15 Principles for Becoming More Kind, Compassionate, and Accepting of Yourself. So when you dove into this, right, and you said this book is calling to be written, must have felt very vulnerable because you were going into one of your deepest wounds, right? And I mean, that takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of vulnerability to do it. How did you stay the course?
Oh, such a good question. Well, when I first decided after that moment of realizing that true happiness and fulfillment is really a holistic approach to everything and loving yourself, I kind of set out on the process and I said, okay, let's make some goals. What is my goal? And so I set up 3 goals for the self-love experiment. 1, to lighten up emotionally, physically, intellectually, spiritually, because I was taking life so seriously. I would go out to dinner with friends and I couldn't even be present because I was obsessing over my calories and I was mad that I didn't work out that day. I mean, that's not fair to my friends. It's not fair to me, but that's where I was. So I was like, I need to lighten up and start enjoying life. And number 2, I had to increase my self-confidence. And I wanted to be able to look in the mirror and say only nice things about myself. That was a goal that seemed so outrageous because I was so used to picking myself apart. And then the third part of my self-love goal was really I wanted to see myself the way my dog does. Because, with our furry friends, they think we're the most beautiful, awesome, amazing things in the world. And I was like, they don't judge us. I want to be more like our animal friends and see the beauty that's really within. So I stayed focused on those goals, but that doesn't mean it wasn't hard. And once I dove in and started writing the book, the process became so hard. Now, I love writing. It is so fulfilling to me. But to write the self-love experiment, it was actually the most challenging thing that I had to do because a lot of it I was still going through. And I was trying so hard to be able to teach it before I was actually allowing myself to be in the experiment. I was like, I have a book to write. I need to do this. But also, I made a promise to myself to be true. And there were certain things that I was like, you're not supposed to say that. You can't tell people that. But I made a promise to myself and I said, no, okay. And so I pushed through that. And I pushed through that fear. And I said, I have to say this and I have to be able to put this out here. And so it was a process. It was a real molasses flow process, but it turned into a love project, really, a self-love experiment within itself.
One of the things that I've always just been in awe of you because you write these books that are so vulnerable and so life-changing, but you also have this really courageous side because you really, not many people would say, okay, I'm walking away from my career to follow this dream in my heart, to not only write, but you, as long as I've known you, had that dream of being a travel writer and writing from these beautiful places. And I'm like, you brought it to fruition. And I love following your posts from all over the world. And and that takes courage, right? But doesn't it also, Shannon, take self-love at some way to believe in your dreams enough? So, see, I always saw that you had this courage, but I said, wow, she's really loving herself because you allowed yourself to be courageous and go after your dreams. And you and I know a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're able to see that. So thank you, because a big part of self-love, and I learned through the self-love experiment, while I was writing the self-love experiment, I asked myself, what have I always wanted to do that I haven't given myself permission to do? And I think we should all ask ourselves that. Get a journal out, free write on it. And I realized I left corporate, and I've always had a dream to be able to work from anywhere in the world. I'm my own boss. Why am I not doing that? And I was feeling kind of bored and a little lifeless and starting to feel a little depressed and anxious again. So I recognized that my environment, and the more I started to love myself, the more I started to recognize that my dreams matter. So I set out for last year a 6-month journey, and I lived in 9 different countries, well, really 6 countries, but visited 9 countries throughout. And it was so beautiful because that's where the self-love experiment, all the pieces came together. It was like this icing on the cake, and I realized you cannot truly have full acceptance and compassion. You can be compassionate, accepting of yourself, but if you're denying yourself the thing that you know will bring you happiness and joy, whatever dream is in your heart, to write that book, to travel the world, to change careers, if you're denying yourself that, then that's why we still feel anxious. That's why we still feel like, oh, okay, life's not as good as it could be. But if we give ourselves permission and we go for it, the most beautiful thing happens. We realize that life is our creation. We get to create what we want. And when we do it with love and when we do it with joy, we become this example to others. And when you love yourself and when you show up for yourself, then everything changes in a beautiful, profound way. And everyone around you lifts up as well.
That's what I want to tell you that I get from following your writing, Shannon. That's the message I get. Give yourself permission to live authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really the core of everything I do. It's at the base of whatever the book is, whatever the article, whatever the podcast or Instagram post. It comes back to we matter, and society's going to tell us we need to be a certain way. Our family may tell us we have pressures from loved ones. But the truth is, I recognized that there's a lot of pain and hurt in this world. There's so much tragedy going on that I recognized in my self-love experiment that if I could really learn and truly, truly love myself, then that would be one less person suffering in the world. That would be one less person hurting, one less person who is feeling depressed. And if I can love myself, then that will help lift up the vibration of the entire planet, at least the people in my community or the people that I choose to live with, right? And so that was a turning point for me too, because we can all do our part to really make things better, because sometimes it feels hopeless. Sometimes we feel like, oh, and we look outside of ourselves. But when we go back in and turn inward, it's about believing in you and trusting in you.
It's so true. And what you just said is when you take care of you, it does ripple out to the community. So I like you, believe that we're all in charge of our own energy and what we bring to the world. And we can't change anything out there until we're vibrating or feeling or experiencing joy, love, bliss within ourselves. So I really resonate with what you just said.
Yeah, and I think it's very true. And the thing is, especially with women, we care so much about others. We have big hearts. We're empathetic. And a lot of times we feel okay when you're okay. Everyone in the family is taken care of. But a lot of times it's at the sacrifice of self. And so what we want to ask and reverse it is really ask ourselves is, why do I think other people are more important than myself? And that's what I asked myself in the self-love experiment too, because for many, many years, I was, we care. We want to show up for people, but it was at the sacrifice of self. It caused weight gain and weight loss and eating disorders and depression. And really, to get to the heart of it, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, can I be with me? Can I enjoy my time? What can I do that brings me joy? And allow myself to be present with that joy. That's going to be key.
It is key. And I think one of my struggles, I'm going to be 55 this year, and I can remember in my 20s and 30s that I was so afraid to be with myself, Shannon, that I was always going 110 miles an hour, right? I never wanted to be home alone. I had to always be doing, because if I was still, then I would have to feel, right?
Right.
Did you go through that stage too?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did. And I in my coaching practice too, I have quite a few people that I work with who are in that, because that's just kind of what we're taught, right? We're taught from our families, from our parents, from a lot of our corporate, jobs. But the reality is, when you sit with yourself when you really, really allow yourself to feel the feelings and you don't overeat, you don't over-exercise, you don't overspend, you don't over anything over that except for just be, you really see the healing that needs to occur and that is waiting to occur. And once you heal and allow yourself to heal, I guess, or be present with it, we can see that it's not as scary as we perceived. Because what happens, fear projects and makes it feel like it's, fear. There's the fear where your life is really in danger. Something, death is going to happen. You're on a cliff and your car's falling over, or, sharks chasing you. Real fear. And then there's the fear that the ego mind projects, of course, and our body, our mind doesn't know the difference. So we feel like we're going to die if we have to sit with these feelings that we haven't addressed since childhood. We feel like we're going to die if we don't address the heartbreak that we've gone through, that divorce or the breakup. But the healing for me, and when I found self-love, was to allow myself to be with these emotions as they came up instead of trying to chase them away. And my habits changed too. I stopped overeating. I didn't need painkillers anymore. It really was a healing process about being authentic with looking at the wounds within.
Yeah, and you know what I discovered too, Shannon? I'm curious if you did. I look back now, and because I was on that journey, probably all 20s all the way up to probably late 30s, and I look back and go, man, it took more energy to hold down all that shit so it wouldn't come up than it did to turn and face it and let them come to the surface, the pain, the fears, everything. It was a lot of life force energy to not feel.
It was. And, I think the key, though, is we're doing the best we can with what we know at the time. And so a lot of people ask me, do you regret, depression or eating disorders? And those were kind of a side effect and, this symptom of me not feeling. And I don't at all regret them because that's the only way I knew how to function. So I think now it's always like looking back, we can see it was so much energy. But that's what I needed to do in order to get through. And I think that's what true self-love is as well, looking at every stage of our life and saying, oh, hon, it's okay. Oh, you did that. And you know what? I'm not judging you for that. It's okay. You did the best you could. But guess what? Like as Maya Angelou says, do what you can until you know better. When you know better, okay, let's do better.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because for many years I was like a high school dropout, runaway, single mom, all of it. And I had Nikki at 22. So I'd say right again until I was 30, I carried, I labeled myself, right? You're a high school dropout, you're this, you're that. And it wasn't until one day I had my other business. It was probably in the 90s. Nikki was probably 10 or 11. I started being asked to speak at homeless shelters and women's shelters. And it was a tough group, right? These women, they went through a lot. And I remember drawing a curly-haired stick figure up on the board, which represented me, and a woman, real tough woman in the audience, Shannon. She goes, so you mean you don't have any regrets that you ran away from home or that you dropped out of high school? And I said, well, let's do this. I'll erase part of my arm, and that's the regret that you feel I should still be carrying for that mistake. And then I kept doing that. I said, if I keep doing that, then the woman that you see in front of you wouldn't exist. I had to go through all that to feel it, to embrace it, to be who I am now. How can I have regrets?
So amazing. I'm seeing that little curly hair person on the whiteboard too. And I love that you said that because that's what happens is we erase pieces of ourselves and we're not able to show up. We're not able to be present and to be in our life.
Yeah.
And that's where the compassion comes in. It's, in my book, The Self-Love Experiment, I actually there's a journal prompt where you can sit down and ask your pain points and the things that are troubling, the situations that you feel are unacceptable and are, the labels we put on ourselves, really. You said it best. You were labeling yourself. But those help you become who you are. So you can ask them, what have you taught me? Who have I become because you were in my life?
Yeah.
And if you weren't here, there's a huge part of who I am today that won't be here. And I'm thankful for you. So it's almost about turning it into appreciation. It takes time, but we can get there.
Exactly. And when we come back from our break, I want to dive into a couple of the tips that you may be led to share with our listeners today that want to step onto this journey.
Great.
Yay. And I'll be back in a moment with Shannon Kaiser of PlayWithTheWorld.com, author of the new book, The Self-Love Experiment, 15 Principles for Becoming More Kind, Compassionate, and Accepting of Yourself. We'll be back in a moment.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Take the first step to radically transform your life and business. Being an entrepreneur takes courage. Forging a path that is uniquely yours can feel scary and alone. But here's a secret. You're not alone. Life and business coach Marianne McKenzie, founder of the Real Woman in Business program, is an expert at guiding women who want to create radically engaged lives and businesses. Marianne knows that successful businesses and the creative minds that run them require more than just knowledge. They require self-awareness, a success mindset, winning strategy, and a tribe of other real women. Marianne coaches heart-centered entrepreneurs to expand and engage their personal lives and passionately grow their businesses. Visit MarianneMcKenzie.com today to join us. You don't have to walk alone.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Shannon Kaiser. And we're talking about self-love, self-talk, and, healing the wounds that keep us really being tough on ourselves. So, Shannon, for the listeners, if someone wanted to step on this path, start their own experiment, how would you guide them to begin?
Beautiful. Well, I think there's a lot of ways we can dive in, but actually looking at it as an experiment is going to be a great first step. And then as we just talked about right before the break, there is a beauty in breakdown. And so when we can look at our pain and see that there is actually purpose in it, that is really the first step, because we start to change the conversation in our mind, start to look at the things that aren't working and the things that we feel bad about, and reevaluate how they've helped us become who we are. But then once we do that, we want to really look at, I call it the 5 pillars really of self-love. And it starts with self-care first. And we have to really show up and take care of ourselves. But I have to say, self-care is not about drinking your green juice every day or doing yoga every single day and making sure you're on your schedule and doing your spin class or Zumba. That's great and important. But if you're doing all those things with I have to lose weight or I'm not good enough, and your inner dialogue is not saying, okay, I'm doing this because it makes me feel good, I'm so happy when I move my body and take care of myself, then we have to really look at the inner voice. And so that's where self-compassion, the second pillar, comes in. Self-compassion is all about what we say to ourselves matters, and being kind to yourself, being where you are instead of where you think you should be. And then, of course, there's some more pillars as we move forward. There's self-trust, learning how to trust yourself, which I take people through in the book. And then, of course, it comes to self-acceptance. Then you accept yourself, and then we really allow ourselves to feel the self-love that's there within us.
Self-acceptance, that is true. And I used to have that same thing. I would do things because I thought I should, right?
Yeah, me
Go
too.
to the gym.
Yeah.
oh, you didn't drink your green drink today, but it was never for the right reasons. And it wasn't until I shifted that mindset. And I do still, like you, I struggle, well, I shouldn't say like you because I think you've overcome it, but I still struggle with the eating, right? So mine was under eating for 50 years, right? And I always had that word should or must. And now I realize, Linda, the moment you hear yourself saying that, that's fear and ego talking. That's not your highest self.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize that fear is always with us. It's part of the human experience, right? It's part of being here. But we can learn how to coast along and live. There's really no coasting in life, maybe a couple moments, but we can learn how to live and do this glorious adventure with our fear, with us. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about it in Big Magic. She's like, my fear, and same with me, my fear was in the driver's seat. It was driving like that. It was forcing me to go to the gym and work out 4, 5, 6 hours a day. It was forcing me to count all my calories and undertake nourishment. And that was really not serving anybody. And so I had to get to a point where I said, you know what, this is fear. It's going to tell me I need to do this. But I'm going to let compassion and I'm going to let love lead the way. And so when we switch it and really focus and consciously move towards love, love will be like, oh, okay, fear, thanks for bringing up that point, but guess what? No, we're not going to the gym today because we are exhausted and our body needs to rest. And so your love begins to win more often. And it's almost like an experiment. It is an experiment. That's what the self-love experiment is. It's almost like a game, You just start to say, okay, fear, you did not win today. Love, we're doing it. Just a fun way to look at it.
It is a fun way, and it's something I tell my clients all the time is the more you run from fear, the more you give your power away. If you would just turn and face it and embrace it. Like I look at my fear now, how I had to come to terms with it, because I used to have a lot of anxiety many years ago, was to look at it as a little child within me that just hadn't been allowed to be heard for many years. So instead of being angry at it, instead of being judgmental or running from it, I would go, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm going to listen. And guess what? I noticed the voice got smaller. It wasn't screaming and taking temper tantrums.
Right.
Is that your experience too? That it softened?
Yeah. I think for all of us, that's what fear does. And I think I talked about this in Find Your Happy, actually Adventures for Your Soul, where I say fear is a child and it's acting out because it doesn't have attention or we're giving it too much attention. And so the minute we decide to step forward into our dreams, into love, into whatever at that moment is opposite of fear, which is if we're, fear, shame, and guilt, and feeling like you messed up are forms of fear. So instead of feeling like you messed up or you're off track or things aren't turning out because you're doomed, instead of focusing on that, you can turn the conversation to a more uplifting one by consciously being aware. The fear immediately subsides as soon as you address it. And I call it, you see it, then you shift it, like consciously saying I'm shifting to a more loving thought, which is the love thought that starts to become your new way of thinking. Your truth really is what it is.
That is what it is. It's truth. It's our truth.
Yeah.
And I can tell this isn't just a book for you. This isn't just a writer who says, I'm going to publish a book. This is the essence of your own experiences, like on a deep level.
Yeah, it truly is. A couple weeks ago, I was it's going to be an audiobook, so I was in the studio when we recorded it. And I was reading through the whole book, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wrote that? I put it all out there. It was a vulnerability hangover, but also after about 3 hours of feeling like, whoa, what did I do? I was like, I felt so much peace because I spoke my truth. I said what I needed to say. And this I am realizing is not just me. 90% of women are feeling this way. There's a piece of us we hate about ourselves. And I lived almost 3 decades feeling this way. And I didn't expect to be sharing it or teaching it. I needed to do it for me. And this was a turning point in my own career where I realized, wow, we truly do as writers especially, but as teachers, we are learning exactly what it is we need to share. And so I've gone on this amazing self-love journey, and this is not a book to me. This is my own personal declaration to life. It's really kind of, I guess, why I'm here. I didn't even know, but I truly do love myself today, and I truly do appreciate myself, and I have so much more compassion. I thought I was a kind, caring person before, but there's so much compassion for everyone in the world now, because now I know it's not just about me. I realize that, everyone's going through so much, and we can just love each other. We can be kind to each other. We can remove the judgment from others. We can remove the judgment from ourselves first, and that's how I'm able to do that.
Yeah, and it's so, see the ripple effect though, right? Like you said, you as you healed, your healing is rippling out and affecting and touching others, whether it's someone that is just in your presence, someone that reads a book, someone that reads your blog. It's like, that's what I believe we're all here for, to find that it, right? Like that passion, and you found that it, and look at the lives you're impacting, because I believe that, well, I'll speak from my own experience. When I first found you online a few years back, when I would read a blog post at the time before your other book came out, I said to myself, you were naming things out loud that many others hide.
Yeah.
And I felt that you were giving women permission to be honest with themselves and in their own lives, because we hide so much of ourselves. And you show up going, this is me. This is what I struggled with. This is my pain. This is this. And it's okay. That was powerful.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's nice to see the journey too, because I believe the work has changed in the experience where I noticed I used to say eating disorders or what they were, but here with the self-love experiment, I was never really fully talking about accepting or loving yourself. It was always about happiness and how I found happiness. And so the work and the journey that I've been on has shifted more to really allowing yourself to be who you are and not needing to change yourself. And that doesn't mean that I don't still have goals. I used to think like I have to lose weight. I can't be a TED Talk speaker. I can't go start dating again unless I lose weight. But through my self-love experiment, it wasn't about weight at all. Today I'm an overweight woman, but I feel healthier and happier than I ever have.
That's
because
beautiful.
I truly have this inner critic that has learned how to exist next to a loving voice that is much stronger. And I go and work out and eat foods that bring me so much joy. And even sitting in my presence, I no longer feel like, oh my God, they're judging me. Oh my God, I can't meet this person because I haven't seen them for 5-10 years and they're going to see how much weight I gained. That voice pops up still. But I immediately come back with, you know what? I'm so happy with who I am and where I am in life. And that's really the shift. And so we do that by continuing to show up for ourselves. I talk about this in the self-love experiment. There's a part where I call it stand by you. Stand by you, because it's not like I don't even want to use the word fall off the wagon. It's not like we don't fall off or fall behind, or I still have emotions of sadness and depression. It's about standing by me through those times. Last night I had 2 bowls of ice cream, and I thought, wow, there was a time where I would eat all this and feel so bad. And I was like, you know what? I want 2 bowls of ice cream tonight. I had a great day, and I'm enjoying this. And you know what? That's where I am right now. No big deal. But it wasn't defining me anymore, and it didn't take me out of the game of life. I didn't,
You didn't spiral. You didn't spiral down.
Exactly. And, it's all about balance. It's all about being where you are, when you are.
It is. And when we come back from our final break, I'd love you to share maybe a ritual, something that you do every day that our listeners, whether it's journaling. I know you shared an exercise earlier if you want to dive even deeper into something else. But I want to leave them with something that they can implement in their lives starting today to start this journey. And I'll be back in a moment with Shannon Kaiser of playwiththeworld.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to experience the unshakable love and unleashed passion you really want? Great news! Discover what thousands of people are doing to transform their relationships in ways they never thought possible. And your partner does not need to participate in the process to enjoy the results you want in your relationship. Relationship expert and Aspire magazine columnist Stacey Martino and her husband Paul are the founders of relationshipdevelopment.org and Relationship U. They have successfully empowered thousands of clients with tools and strategies that really work to transform their relationship. Any relationship. And your partner does not even need to participate for their proven system to work for you. Transforming your relationship is possible, and it begins with you. Take the first step and visit relationshipdevelopment.org today.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism.
Me, a cat moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Shannon Kaiser. So, Shannon, what do you do every day for yourself? Whether it's a ritual, something that keeps you connected to this path.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, as I share through the self-love experiment, there's a lot of different things throughout the day. But the number one thing is to really look at what our inner critic is doing. And so for me, I am really clear with that inner voice that tries to sabotage or take me down. And in order to not let it rule my day or ruin it, I have a practice that I do first thing in the morning and a practice I do right before I tuck myself into bed. And in the morning, let's start with the evening ritual. I actually love going to bed at night. Of course, I'm very thankful. And so the gratitude is really the key for everything. Instead of going through my day and thinking all the things I didn't do, the calories I may have gone over or how whatever it was, skipped a workout, I actually say and go through the list of things that I am proud of, the wins for the day, the good things, the people's lives I touched. And so to put yourself in that vibration is so beautiful right before you go to bed. I often watch a meditation from Jerry or Esther Hicks, or I listen to one of my own audio meditations about 5-10 minutes before I go to bed, because this really aligns you with love and puts you into a place. So if you have a teacher or follower, or if you have a specific book that you're reading that you love, maybe personal development books, giving that time for you, it's really about you time, me matters time. And this is a place of true joy. And then so what happens when you wake up, you're not in this, oh my gosh, I have to check my email right away. I overate yesterday. I have to go so low today on my calories. All these things we do. I immediately start, before I even put my feet on the ground, I think Wayne Dyer did this as well, go through gratitude. I say, I am so happy for today. I pet my dog and I appreciate my bed. I go through appreciation for about 5 minutes. I even look at my overweight tummy and I say, I'm so thankful that we're here. We have another day to live. We're here. And then I go brush my teeth and I look in the mirror and I make sure that I'm saying kind things to myself. Today it's very natural to be able to say, oh, look how cute you are. And this really sets you up for the whole entire day of feeling more balanced and connected to self. So it's an evening ritual and a morning ritual of gratitude and appreciation for self.
That's beautiful. What a full circle, huh? Because looking in the mirror the day before that taping of a morning show, you couldn't really look yourself in the eyes. Right. And then here really now, I could feel the lightness of spirit as you explain your morning ritual. Yeah, and I think it's powerful for us because, a lot of times when you're sleeping, it's kind of like we can allow ourselves to rest a little bit, and that inner critic can't really live because we're sleeping. So it's almost like you're setting yourself to retrain your brain to focus on what's good about yourself. That's so beautiful. And what I love, too, is I love that you incorporate, I love Jerry and Esther Hicks. And it's so funny because before we came together for the show, I love Karen Drucker too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was listening to I Am So Blessed, right? And then I love that song. Like
Yes.
How can you not be in the energy? I listen to a bunch of them. You know why? Because sometimes I'm in between things and I have like 3 to 4 minutes. It's an automatic shift of energy for me.
It is, and I love what you're saying because I actually created in my experiment a self-love playlist, music that's really uplifting, and I would play that often. And that's what music has this huge capacity to uplift us, make us feel connected. So that's another great tool to listen to music you like and also connect with meditation playlists that you're vibing with.
Oh, I can't wait to get access to that list, and I want to share with everyone. Shannon's book is available for pre-order right now. Comes with some great bonuses, and it will be available a week from today. It will ship out to you.
Yeah, August 29th.
I'm like super excited for this.
I'm so excited too. It's such a beautiful process to be able to share this, but it's memoir, but it's also, there's very actionable steps for people too. If you enjoyed the conversation today and you really feel guided and moved to go deeper, this book is, as I was reading the audiobook last week, I realized it's a guidebook to really allow ourselves to be us. It's bigger than just self-love or just, showing up. It's a guidebook.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's everything that you put out, though, is like that. You share from your personal experience, but then you share what you learned in, like, whether it's a ritual, a meditation. You give us something to incorporate in our journey.
Yeah, thank you. And in fact, what's different about this too is there's a lot more to incorporate as far as I have a whole journal prompt at the end. There's like actionable journal questions you can do. There's mantras. I do this in books, but the way I've designed this book, it's actually very intuitive for you to go on your own self-love experiment as well. And I do go deeper than I ever have. It's interesting because I do feel like a vulnerable author, but I share more. I sent this to my best friend. She was able to read the first copy. She's like, wow, I'm so proud of you. You said stuff that like no one knows about you. And I think it's important for us to all show up to just allow ourselves to be us. And so I hope if you do read it, you enjoy the journey and some healing can happen.
Oh, I have no doubt there's going to be a lot of healing from any woman once this book comes out because of your just way of showing up so authentically. And, even for your friend to say that to you, and because you've been pretty open in all of your books about everything from the eating disorder to your old life many years ago and the struggle with depression. So you've been pretty out there in all the other books. So for her to say, whoa, that's something new that you've never shared, it's like, it tells me more layers have come off.
Yeah, that's exactly really what it is. It's the next layer, really it's about, I was talking from a level of happiness and I wouldn't talk about the self-love because I still don't like myself. But then this is a departure, a dive in deeper, if you will, about really, like you said, women, we feel like maybe we can't be true to ourselves. And this is what I did. I decided I'm going for it. I'm just going to share and let it be where it is. As in, I didn't realize it was going to turn into a book, but here it is. I'm so thankful that I get to share this with all of you.
So if you could leave a woman who's struggling right now with one or more of the same struggles that we've been talking about today, is there a message you want to leave her with?
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I think the message is to really, the one that's really coming to me to share with people listening right now is to appreciate the struggle. And we talked a lot about it in the first segment. We have these things about ourselves that we think when we change, then my life will be okay. And we feel like our struggles, we can't talk about them, we can't share them, we silently suffer. And what I mean by appreciate is allow yourself to say, okay, this is where I am right now, or this is what I went through. And then give yourself permission to share, maybe with your best friend, share with one person, share with anyone. Open yourself up to let love in. Share with yourself. Journal. As you do this, just like as we've been talking about, me sharing my whole experience, there's a profound healing that can happen for you. And also, you allow yourself to be who you really are. I hope that helps.
That was beautiful.
There's a whole chapter in my book about that, too.
Yay, and I want to give you URL again. It's playwiththeworld.com. Swing by there. You'll see the post about her new book and all the juicy bonuses. Grab it. Take advantage of the bonuses, and it will ship next week on August 29th, the official launch day. So, Shannon, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world. I truly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. It's been beautiful to be here.
And everyone, I hope to see you every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern for more sacred conversations with extraordinary women like Shannon. If for even more inspiration, be sure to claim your free subscription to Aspire Magazine, and you can do that at subscribe2aspire.com. Until next time, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.